Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please remain standing while the Minister says prayers about our meeting today in Staffordshire in general. Father Potter.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Father, we come before you with open minds and open hearts, with open ears. I pray that you will guide our thoughts, inspire them with your wisdom, so that the words we speak may be the words you would have us speak, that all we do may be to the benefit of all those who live in this county, that we may share all that we have with all that who are in need. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. As we pray for the health and welfare of this county, so too we hold before you King Charles III and all the royal family at this particular time. We pray that those who would seek to criticize unjustly and uninformedly may also have their hearts and minds open to your word and your works, that you will maintain, support, and watch over and keep them safe. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. O God, creator of all and ruler of all, we ask your blessing on members of this county council who have been called to show care and responsibility in the community. We pray that they may have wisdom, patience, and the ability to listen to each other and to the needs and desires of those whom they represent, and through their dedication and hard work, this council may duly prosper and the life of all people enhanced. We ask this through Jesus Christ the Lord. Amen. I invite you to join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Please be seated. Welcome to today's meeting. Item 1 on today's agenda is apologies. Are there any apologies for absence?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Yes, we do. We have 4 that I'm aware of. Councillors Heath, Councillor Jones, Councillor Wildman and Councillor Wilson.
Are there any further apologies?
Wilkes.
We had Councillor Wilson on the list, I
Wilkes.
thought.
Wilkes.
Councillor Peters. Oh, sorry, we'll take Councillor... Can you turn your mic on, please?
Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you.
Councillor Peters, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare any interest? No declarations of interest. Item 3, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 8th of February 2024 be signed as a true record. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 4, I have only one item of chairman's correspondence, which is quite a sad one, as it often is. Former Clerk of the Council, Bernard Price, DL. It is my sad duty to inform members of the death on the 28th of February of former Clerk of the County Council, Bernard Price, DL. Mr. Price joined Staffordshire in September 1970, and following a series of internal promotions, he was appointed County Clerk and Chief Executive of the County Council from the 1st of April 1983. He held the post for 20 years until his retirement on the 31st of March 2003. Mr. Price was awarded the CBE in 1997 for services to local government in Staffordshire. He was also awarded an honorary doctorate in law by the University of Kiel in 2001. in recognition of his outstanding contribution to Staffordshire, contribution to Staffordshire. Shortly after his retirement in 2003, he was appointed as a Deputy Lieutenant in the county. Councillor Philip Atkins.
Thank you, Chairman. Just looking around the chamber, and I don't think there's anybody on the county. Well, there might be one or two actually that would have been on the county council when Bernard was chief exec and county clerk, and he was on when I first got elected back in 1987. So I was sort of he'd been in the role for 4 years. Bernard always introduced me as his county councillor because he lived at Abbots Bromley and was keen on his village activities. But being a good politician, I always noted that while his wife always voted, he never did. He was really straight down the line on being apolitical in the role. And if you cast your mind back to what was going on in the 80s and 90s, he managed this county, together with Stoke-on-Trent, because we were a whole county at the time, through some quite troubled times with, you look round at the four mottos on the top. We had the coal mines closing. I can remember being in this chamber when we refused permission for some coal mining that would go under Barlaston. It was a really difficult time, but Bernard steered the ship really well under the circumstances. Really nice guy. He loved his bridge and village activities along with his wife Christine. And Emma, his daughter, for a while ended up as the chief exec at Alton Towers, and Emma got in touch with me before Mike did, actually, to tell me that her father had passed away. Really, really nice family man. In latter years, he suffered with his health, and he really got involved with the Patients Advisory Liaison Service, making sure that patients' voices were heard in the National Health Service. His death was sudden, unexpected, and my thoughts are with his widow and his family. And if you've read out the long list of things that he did, Chairman, and I can't possibly add to that. You know, you walk past these names that are carved on the wall, and it's just sad that there aren't other people here who were the leader underneath him or involved with Bernard and what he did. I suppose one of the things, these words that you never utter in this hallowed chamber, he had to deal with pin down and the aftermath of that. But he did that in a fair-minded manner and in a difficult manner. So from easy to hard, he dealt with it. And I just liked the guy. I wouldn't dare call him a guy. I'd have to call him Mr. Price. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Atkins. You're always so eloquent when we talk about people that have passed. You've been around so many years, you know them so well. And from a chairman's point of view, I genuinely appreciate that you take the trouble to do that. Can I ask members to please stand and observe a minute's silence? Thank you. Please take your seats. Moving on to item 5 on today's agenda, the statement of the Leader of the Council. Councillor Alan White, will you move consideration of the statement, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move consideration of the Leader's statement.
Item 1 on the Leader's statement, which is Staffordshire means back to business. Councillor Charlotte Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given the success of our local LEP, why do you think the government has decided to stop funding LEP from April? Surely that will damage growth in our local economy. And does the transfer of the LEP responsibilities to the County Council come with any extra resources? And what assessment has been made of the impact on staffing costs of these responsibilities coming to the County Council? Thank you.
Councillor Jill Hood.
I was delighted to read the Leader's announcement about the tourism section. And I've left home this morning and my daughter is trying on at least 100 dresses to get ready for the event at the Arboretum tonight, where the Trentham events team will know if they're going to be put forward and, in fact, if they've won. She tells me they don't stand a chance because the alpacas are in the running, and I thought, yeah, I've got sympathy with that. I ask you to think about all these people who are office-based, but when the events take place, they go out, they slither about in the mud, they get their fingernails covered in whatever, they interact with the public, and they have an absolutely wonderful time, although exhausted. We are really lucky to live in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent because of the amount of attractions that we have. And I feel particularly blessed to be in Stone in the urban division because we have many visitors on their way either to Alton Towers, the Potteries, Trentham, and all the other places that we love to go to, Drayton Manor too. So many of them call off in the town and they spend. So more importantly, they spend. It boosts the local economy and they love the various towns. And hopefully the hotels, bed and breakfasts get full. But, and it's a really big but, there is no or very little public transport. And when I go to Trentham and I look at the hundreds and hundreds of cars and I have to go every day, it just makes me sad. And here we are talking about our visitor product and delivering a green, sustainable tourism offer. If we had public transport, maybe it would reduce drastically the amount of cars that are going to these various tourist attractions. And in the summer, the burden of cost that's put on families trying to get to these places without public transport. So I ask the Leader, through you, Chairman, that perhaps this County Council can have a look at public transport just to help make it easier for us to visit and for those who are coming from across the country to visit. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Just looking at the last paragraph, pleased to see that you're moving forward with the lobbying activities for the 50-500 corridor. What I would like to say from this side is that Stafford Malden District Council are fully on board with this project and offer their support. And I'd like to the Leader's commitment that we engage fully with Stafford Malden District Council. I understand initial preliminary discussions have been very positive and very taking place. And picking up the comments from Councillor Hood, that we ensure that any development goes ahead on the 500 A50 corridor include a coordinated transport approach. I understand that we are looking at the local transport plan for the next 5 years or so, and that's currently under consultation. I'm just slightly concerned about seeing this, and it's only a very slight concern, it's just something to be aware of, is that this is probably racing on a slightly different timescale to the local transport plan. So I think it's key to have a coordination on where we want the county to be, and and this is a prime example of where we want the county to be, to make sure that the current local transport plan which is being developed is actually future-proofed and takes into account developments like these and potentially others, where we do need to ensure that we've got good cycling paths, good access for new housing sites, and good public transport systems. And to that end, we did have a meeting concerning the local transport plan at Stafford Moorlands earlier this week, and one of the concerns which we had was the timescale under which it's being developed. And I want to just get the leaders' commitment that all the district and borough councils will be fully engaged with the process and have plenty of time to put their submissions in to be taken account of when the local transport plan is actually delivered.
Councillor Philip Atkins.
Thank you, Chairman. Really good report this is, but I just want to talk on a couple of things. One was the LEP, and to thank all those people who've served on the LEP actually, because they did a really good job on getting an awful lot of projects that we are involved with, and the boroughs and districts and the city council were involved with, over the line and getting them completed. We wouldn't have had the Stafford Western Access Road done if it had still been run from Birmingham and the West Midlands. You wouldn't have any chance of the Etruria being done. You wouldn't have had any chance of the Lichfield Southern Bypass being done. You wouldn't have had any chance of the Branston Locks interchange being done. You wouldn't have had the roundabout at Beaconside wouldn't have been done. There's loads of projects where, with a little bit of added help, got them over the line. And you wouldn't have had I-54 Staffordshire done and paid for, motorway junction paid for by now, if it hadn't been for two LEPs coming together, the Black Country in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, and it being made a business enterprise zone, so the business rates went to the LEP to pay the money back that did the work. Pay the money back. That's the trick. And that's what the LEP focused on. And there's a lot of people who were chairman of it who we need to give thanks to over the years. And I'm quite sure that it's done the job and it needs to move on. And I noticed last year we did a thing called the Rural Economic Strategy. We have an industrial strategy. And on the back of this, in the delivery arrangements, it's got a leadership group for the rural economy. Well, I'm quite sure the leader will have a leadership group for the whole of Staffordshire in a similar vein that brings everybody together from the private, public sectors, because we do not deliver jobs. It's the private sector that does that. And we can't deliver projects unless we do it together. So there's really a good opportunity there to follow the model. And I want to speak to the last paragraph. And Mr. Yates is a little bit late to the table, I suppose. This has been going on for quite a long time. And the A50 is involving right from the east to the west, from Cheshire East to Nottinghamshire, and all the counties and cities in between. Not the districts. It's a transport matter. It's a highway matter. It's about monitoring and lobbying government and Midlands Engine and Midlands Connect. And I'm really pleased that we've got to the stage that we have now, because it wouldn't have gone anywhere under any other administration. They didn't think outside the box. And one of the things I do locally want to just nail to the floor is the concept of the hamburger junction at the A50, B50-30 junction. There's one or two people look at these plans in a 2D method, not a 3D. The proposals on most of these junctions is to have a flyover that goes over the roundabout rather than the cost of pushing the roundabout up in the air. Go and have a look at the Hamford Junction or Festival Park and you'll get an idea about what the proposals are, rather than going on Facebook or other social media and knocking the hard work that a lot of professionals and politicians have put into a project that will move this country forward. The Midlands is the engine of the country, not the south, not the north. As I said at the last meeting, we've now got up to the average wage. This will bring more jobs to our region, our county, better paid jobs. And thank you for all the efforts that Philip and Alan White have put into this, and Kate Knifton, the MP, who is the champion for it.
Councillor Syed Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to thank the leader for the advance sight of his statement, giving this me opportunity to do so. Mr. Chairman, I'm standing here to talk about thousands of low-income families and low-income workers in our county, especially in Staffordshire. About 48 hours ago, we got an email from our very capable officer, Mr. Darren Farmer, which indicates since 2022, 2020 and 2024, between this period, we got, Mr. Chairman, 32% increase of claimant of universal credit claimant. This case is 66% increase in East Staffordshire in my district. Mr. Chairman, the reason I'm bringing this one is, although the government is saying that few £100 cutting this two pence in national insurance, the reality is every pound they get the universal credit claimant on, they have to give up 55 pence of their pound. And I'm just urging the cabinet member what more he can do, or the council would do, to minimize their universal credit claimant. The reason is quite important, Mr. Chairman, because it's got a negative impact on the businesses if it goes too much, and end up with very, very low incomes and got a knock-on effect on the dinner tables. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Mark DeVille.
Chairman, good morning. Morning, colleagues. Thank you. Great report, this is Chairman. The A50, A500 corridor project is even broader than Mr. Atkins' description from Nottinghamshire to Cheshire East. It's broader than that. It strategically links up two international airports, Chairman. East Midlands Airport, right up to Manchester Airport. So really, it's A50, A500, straight onto the M6, and we have two international airports at each end of it. So it's a massively important project, and I, like Mr. Atkins, thank the leader and the deputy leader and the officers for the intense work that they're doing on this. Chairman, agree totally with Mrs. Hood. Staffordshire is a great place to visit, isn't it? And Alton Towers, of course, on my doorstep. Thank God for Alton Towers in our area, we always say, Jill. And I'm delighted to see, I think, that the new Nemesis ride opens on Saturday. So I'm sure that will boost visitor figures even greater, Chairman. I won't be on it. I won't be on it. And I definitely won't be on Oblivion. Only once did I do that, Chairman. That's another story. Mr. Yates commented on the A50, A500 corridor. And of course, you're right, it's essential that districts are able to link onto that strategic project. And I think the trick with Staffordshire Moorlands District Council, and we do totally support this project with great enthusiasm, the trick in the Staffordshire Moorlands is how we get from Cheadle, Leek and other outlying villages onto the A50 and the A500. So our part of the jigsaw is to formulate and work with the county on a transport plan that enables us to access the A50 and A500 corridor. And Mr. Yates is right. We had a very, very good meeting the other day where we discuss this. And my ask would also be to the leader and the cabinet member, Mr. Williams, when we go to consultation on the transport plan, it's really, really important that districts do have a voice. And my ask would be to give sufficient time to consult properly on this, because we've absolutely got to get this right, to consult properly and thoroughly on this, to consider all of the points and opinions and challenges to the project, and give us time to consult properly on this. I would agree with Mr. Yates on that, but Staffordshire Moorlands are very, very happy, delighted to take part in this, and it's a great project for the future of Staffordshire, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille, and I'm in full agreement. I won't be troubling Nemesis or Oblivion either. Councillor David Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I note the demise of the LEP. I don't think I'd want to criticise what work the LEP has done. It's worked hard and it's done a great job. But I think that to look at the work that the LEP had previously been doing, to see that incorporated into the county council, we have the communications, we have the resources, and through our members we're able to bring to the table a much, much better understanding of local needs. And so I welcome the fact that it's going to come to the county council. I only hope from the county council's point of view that we are setting up the right level of communications with business, so that business can feel that we're not an arm's length organisation, but that we're embracing very, very much their needs. And I'm sure that we'll do that, Chairman. So I welcome the addition to the County Council's role, the role that was previously undertaken by the LEP. And I say that from having significant experience of working with LEPs in Birmingham and around. I think that there has been, to a degree, a disjointed relationship. And I think that bringing everything into one house is going to be a great improvement. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mark Winnington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, a few words about local enterprise partnership. I feel it's sort of slightly remiss of me not to say something, because there's so many people been involved with it over the years, and it has had some great successes. As with all of these things, they're like plants. We put the seedlings down, they grow, and then they senesce, and I'm afraid we're at the senescing stage now, and hopefully the projects such as the A5500 will sort of take some of that nourishment and fly, and I'm sure it will under the guidance of the leader and deputy leader. I just wanted to sort of talk about one of the greatest successes of the LEP. It wasn't I-54, it wasn't all the stuff we did at Cannock, it wasn't West Midlands Trains, it wasn't all of that. It was working together. And the best example I've got of that working together, and it was nationally acclaimed, and there was awards flying around. We had, for I-54, the leader of South Staff's council, who was Conservative, the leader of Wolverhampton Council, who was Labour, and Councillor Atkins, who's again, a county councillor. So we had a county, a unitary, and a district council, all different political persuasions, working together for the people of the area and the greater area. And to me, that'll always be the outstanding result and the best example of what we can do if we work together. Thank you.
Thank you. One more speaker before I bring the cabinet member in. Councillor Philip Hudson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Atkins and myself represent the adjacent divisions, so it's only right and proper that I support everything that he said about the A50-500 corridor. Totally support you, Phil. You know that we work together in partnership, covering both of the urban and the rural divisions, sorting out the issues there. And I use the A50 every day of the week, going to my work in Derbyshire, except when I'm here representing Uttoxeter at the full council meetings and other meetings. And I've also seen the burger islands in Festival Park down at Hanbury, and I think, to be honest with you, that's probably the best solution for those roundabouts in your Toxteth to make it work better, because it helps people get along the B5030 to Roaster and JCB, and it also helps our people get from Nottingham along the A50 all the way up to the A500, so I think that's a sensible approach. But I would like to thank our MP, Kate Niverton, for the work that she's done in driving this project. Thank you so much, Kate, for the work that you do. I will continue to support you and our residents throughout this project, and let's get it done as soon as we can. Thank you.
Councillor Philip White.
Morning, Chairman. Morning, everybody. A lot of points there. I'm going to do my best to cover all of them, but I'll apologise in advance if I miss anything. I hope the leader will sweep up anything that I do miss. And I'll go on the order that it's in the agenda item. So, regarding universal credit claimants, that 32% increase that you mentioned is similar to what we've seen nationally. So Staffordshire is no different to anywhere else in respect of that. Where Staffordshire does stand out in terms of universal credit is our overall claimant rate is far, far lower than the regional average. It's about half the regional average and is considerably lower than the England average. So whilst the points you make are well made, we have a good record and a long-term record in terms of this. So we can stand on that record. It doesn't mean that we don't have to do more to make sure that more people are in employment and gainful employment. And as I've mentioned quite a few times before in this chamber, our Jobs and Careers Service is Staffordshire County Council's contribution to that, linking people with jobs and training. And there are still as many jobs in Staffordshire as there are people who are seeking them, so joining those up is really important, along with removing other barriers to people getting into work. In terms of the tourism awards, it's nice to know you've got somebody who's got a stake in that, and good luck to them, and good luck to everybody else. It's fantastic. We've got a record number of people and organisations who've applied to be part of those tourism awards. The winners of these, in many categories, go on to the national awards, and we've had quite a lot of success in the last couple of years in those national awards. So Staffordshire's place in the tourism world is really well indicated by that, as it is by securing a top-tier status as a tourism economy by having a local visitor economy partnership. That's Visit England's badge that says you count for something in the tourism world, and it's very good that Staffordshire is recognised as that with our near £2 billion tourism economy. Regarding the LEP and Councillor Atkins' question about why the change, I suspect you know the answer in that it's a change in government policy. So the government has decided that LEPs need to discontinue. The ostensive reason for that, the reason that I've heard the Secretary of State give, is that his view is that public money should be handled by elected public officials wherever possible. And so moving the LEP's functions into the two top-tier local authorities in Staffordshire, the County Council and Stoke-on-Trent City Council, fits with that. What we have already done is agreed joint working with Stoke-on-Trent City Council so that we'll deliver those services effectively as a Staffordshire team. We're also in the process of setting up a business on the representative functions of the LEP. The LEP fundamentally had three really big responsibilities. So the first was the handling of money. So for projects, as Councillor Atkins ably described, a driver for massive investment in infrastructure in Staffordshire. The second is the voice of business. And the third is essential services that businesses use. And there I'd highlight principally the Growth Hub, which we are bringing into the County Council to deliver here. And so those services are safe in our hands, and they will be democratically accountable through this chamber and through Stoke-on-Trent City Council's chamber, and I think that is a good thing. The final thing I'll say on the LEP is just to add my voice of thanks to everyone who has worked so hard as part of the LEP over many years. many on a voluntary basis, but also the employees of the LEP who've done a wonderful job. I'll try and get through one more thing before the red light descends on me. So just regarding Staffordshire Moorlands, I'm very pleased to say that after a hiatus since last May, we have now been invited by Staffordshire Moorlands to recommence our joint growth board, which is something that we had for many years prior to the change in leadership at the Moorlands. We've been very keen to get that going again, but we've had to wait until the District Council was ready. They are, so that is now our vehicle again for having discussions about some of the things that we've talked about in this chamber. So enterprise centres, the 5500 project, which I won't have time to speak on, and so we'll pass to the leader in a moment. Local transport plans, we've got the forum for that now back up and running, so thank you to your colleagues at the District Council for agreeing to do that.
Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, to Councillor Hood, good luck to your daughter this evening. Myself and the Chief Executive will be at the Tourism Awards this evening on behalf of Staffordshire County Council. I'm presenting, hopefully, some awards, hopefully to your daughter, who knows. Both the Chief Executive and I have been presented with a risk assessment for this evening's event, as we are duty-bound to do. And whilst they've done a fair assessment of myself and the Chief Executive, I'm not sure they've got the assessment right for the participants, because it says here, limited alcohol consumption, bar is closed during presentation. Now, I've been to one of these things before, and I can tell you that limited alcohol consumption is not what goes on for those people that win the awards. To the point about bus services, though, Councillor Hood, we have a bus service improvement plan which is ongoing at the moment. We are in the process of refreshing it, and we also have a local transport plan that we are working towards. We would hope that we would get that local transport plan in place by the end of the year. The deadline for that is April 2025, which segues neatly into Councillor Yates's question about engaging with Staffordshire Moorlands Council. I've been delighted to engage with Councillor Gledhill, the leader of Staffordshire Moorlands District Council. He and I share a common enthusiasm. Who knew that Councillor Gledhill was a Sky Blue Man City fan? As is the leader of Stafford Borough. So it turns out we're all blue. But with that, he has been an enthusiastic supporter of the Leaders Board. He will be contributing, along with Staffordshire Moorlands Borough District Council, to the work of the local transport plan, as will all districts and boroughs around the county, recognising how people move around. So how people move around in the north of the county bears no resemblance to how people move around in the south or the east or the centre of the county. So the local transport plan will acknowledge that. Councillor Atkins rightly talked, and as did Councillor Winnington, with warmth about the work of the LEP. And I'd just like to thank those people who've been part of it over the years. Alan Rogers, the outgoing chairman of the LEP, has been particularly good at engaging with various stakeholders. But notably, Councillor Tagg was there at the start and was there at the end of the LEP. So long service and good conduct medal for you. Well, long service medal, not the good conduct bit, for you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Hussain, you talk about the national insurance contributions and the universal credit, universal credit claimants. You'll be delighted to hear that there's a work stream within the Leaders Board on social inequalities, which is being led by Mike Gledhill from Staffordshire Moorlands District Council. We're working together to address those issues and see what can be done. And finally, I just want to reference Councillor Smith and his how he emphasises the importance of the business voice as part of the considerations that we do as a county council in thinking about future infrastructure. I know Councillor Smith works very hard in Tamworth to engage with business in Tamworth and make sure that local politicians have the ear of local business and local business vice versa, because we need to understand what's important to them. And I'm delighted from time to time to get invited to some of the events that you set up, Councillor Smith, because it's really, really important that we continue to do that. As far as the A50, A500 corridor project is concerned, people have spoken to that. We do need a very significant amount of input on the part of the districts and boroughs along the entire length of the corridor. They are the planning authorities, and without the planning authorities, this is going to be more difficult than it needs to be. And if Councillor Tagg had the opportunity to speak, he would certainly be talking to the environmental considerations and the green considerations that we need to have as part of the growth corridor. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to conclude by thanking the LEP once more for their hard work over the years.
Moving on to item 2 on the leader's statement, which is homes for children in our care. Councillor Gillian Pardacy.
Thank you, Chair. The 6 in-house local authority-run children's homes move to help reduce the number of children that for far too long have been placed too far away from their family homes and loved ones and can be moved again and again from place to place. And it also means, Chair, as well, that we can fully hold these homes to account and further meet some of the complex needs of our children without being ripped off by the private sector. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Anne Edgeler.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. I cannot thank Councillor Mark Sutton and his team for moving forward and building these local homes for our most vulnerable and complex needs children. Being the mother of a child with complex needs and in being placed in a children's home miles from home, aged 13, Penarth in Wales, Stroud in Gloucester, knowing the heartbreak and suffering that situation can bring, just to reflect, I remember being upset all the way home on one visit because I knew he was in the wrong place, but I wasn't in a position to do anything about it. I could write a book about my experiences with care homes for children far away from home. So thank you, Councillor Sutton, from the bottom of my heart for putting our children first. Thank you. Can I also add, Chairman, I think you've all had a copy about the mental health app that the Walton High School have done. You'll all receive the app that has been put together by the children in Walton High School. I ask you all to share it with all your schools in your area, and Walton High School, you've done a brilliant job. Children helping children with their mental health problems. What more can we adults in this world ask for? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moxon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and can I thank Councillor Edgeler and Councillor Pardacy for their comments. And I think most people in this chamber are probably at one with this article that went through cabinet last month. Our number one aim is for children in our care is to ensure that they are in a loving home, and on most occasions, a foster carer's home would be the right solution for that, and that's what we would aim for. But there are occasions where those vulnerable children do need to go into residential care, and having more of our own care homes will add more flexibility to that. Will make us able to provide homes at a more realistic cost for our more vulnerable and complex children, and will, as has been highlighted, ensure that those children are closer to home. And one of the advantages of that is they'll be able to keep those family ties, because the aim with all children in our care is to make sure that we endeavour to keep family ties where we can, so that children can move home if that is safe and that's appropriate to do so. The other two parts of this paper are around foster carers and also around those residential care homes that are provided by the private sector, and ensuring that we have a framework across the West Midlands to ensure that we get best value and more choice in those areas. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Moving on to item 3 on the leader's statement, which is Green Solutions, Staffordshire County Council, delivery of the pilot Business Energy Advice Centre.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just a couple of quick things on this. So this is a very good scheme that extends the reach of what's typical in these sort of green business grant schemes, which tend to be for quite small amounts of money. This scheme offers considerably larger grants, which is quite exciting for us because it means we can engage with larger businesses than we usually can with these sort of schemes, which we're really pleased to be able to do. The other thing that's really pleasing is that this is funding that's come to us from the West Midlands Combined Authority. They received a large grant from the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero and weren't able to spend all of it in their area. And when they looked for a partner who would be able to spend the money well and efficiently and in a short period of time, naturally they found their way to Staffordshire because we are highly effective at delivering these sort of schemes. Just want to make a particular mention of Nicola Kent, who is the officer who delivers these schemes. Who, my goodness, is able to catch a ball that's thrown at her very fast and then do something useful with it, which we will do with this scheme. So if you're aware of any businesses, small or medium-sized, that might benefit from this type of funding, please do get in touch with them and get them to get in touch with us. Thank you.
Moving swiftly on to item 4 on the leader statement, which is the House Waste Recycling Centre, the Equipment Replacement Programme. I have no speakers. Councillor Simon Take.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, a real good news story this, I think. As part of the business case for bringing in the House Waste Recycling Centres was to have an equipment replacement programme. 4 JCBs ordered and in the process of being delivered, and these will help to obviously aid the working of the sites, but also they're going to be using HVO, hydrogenated vegetable oil, so there'll be obviously net zero emissions as well. I think this shows our commitment to our household waste recycling sites and that they are for Staffordshire residents, as we've done with our successful permit scheme. And also using a local company, JCB, you know, a successful local company for this as well is ideal. So a good news story all round. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tegg. Moving on to item 5 on the leader statements, which is the Integrated Performance Report for Quarter 3. Once again, I have no speakers. Councillor Parry, do you want to come in on this? Moving on swiftly to item 6 on the leader statement, which is the adoption of the revised civil contingency policy and the new business continuity plan policy for Staffordshire County Council. I have no speakers. Nope, the leader doesn't want to come in. Moving on swiftly to item 7 on the leader statements, which is the Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion Progress Update. Councillor Sawyer-Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Equality, Diversity and Inclusion's EDI, always appreciated from all walks of life, especially this side of the bench and people in general, especially in Staffordshire. Mr. Chairman, racism is a poison, should have no place in our society. I deplore the racist attack on any politicians based on their skin color, faith, or gender, which is always a big challenge for this EDI principle. On this note, I'm sure many colleagues will join and condemn the recent racist attacks on individuals like Diane Abbott, MP, which harms inclusions and diversity by perpetuating exclusions, reinforcing stereotypes, limiting public debates, slowing development, and breaking laws and ethics. They instill anxiety and discomfort in marginalized groups, limiting their capability and capacity to contribute to society. The reason I'm bringing this one, Mr. Chairman, I have stand on the shows I have suffered through. I am grateful to many of my colleagues in both sides of this House and beyond. Councillor McDowell, in my difficult time, You came in and stand with me and give me the comfort. My leader, even the leader, your good self as well, if you remember. I'm grateful for it. Mr. Chairman, I welcome the report to look into the gender gap and things. At the same time, I would like to point out for considerations for the cabinet member whether a disability pay gap survey is to be considered, because it's crucial for ensuring equality, diversity, and inclusion as well. By identifying and addressing disabilities in pay and employment outcomes for individuals with disabilities, and surely it will help our councils to comply with any legal obligations, develop inclusive employment practice, monitor progress, promote transparency, and inform policy and decision-making, and ultimately promoting a more inclusive workforce. I'm not saying it has not been practiced in here, but we would like to make our good even better. So, Mr. Chairman, on this note, yet again, I would like to express my gratitude. Some of the words in 2024, what was used against me, which is totally abhorrent. When I became the first citizen, the mayor of East Staffordshire, in online, some individuals says, quote, another brown, another Muslims in power. Wait till we commence the civil war. When I first elected as the first Muslim in this chamber, and I was the only BAME councillor, and I am grateful to every councillors for their support. And first, after the first elections I got, now we got elected, you can get a free ticket to Pakistan. And I'm proud of this place, Mr. Chairman, and my colleagues for their support. And I'm sure this place will continue to be the place of local government excellence. On this note, thank you, Chairman, for listening to us. Thank you.
Councillor saying thank you for sharing that, and I think we all genuinely appreciate you sharing it. Also, I think we all stand with you against any form of racism. Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to join you with the condemnation of racism in any form. It's totally unacceptable, and I know you have been in receipt of racist filth over the past few months and years, and it's totally unacceptable, and I have sympathised with you, I've stood with you on a number of occasions on this, and I wholeheartedly condemn the perpetrators of this racism. It's totally unacceptable. We live in a society which is sadly polarising in a way which I've not seen in my lifetime, and I don't think anybody else has seen in theirs. And we see it across the Atlantic as well, don't we, that polarisation of views. And that polarisation leads to limited dialogue. And if we are able to speak to each other, it is so obvious that there's so much that unites us and so little that actually divides us. I was privileged on my first ever visit as leader of Staffordshire County Council. My first visit I ever undertook was to a mosque in your division, Councillor Hussain, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. It was the first mosque I've ever visited, and that conversation I had with the imams and the community leaders there helped me to understand the challenges that we faced at the time of getting the messages out about COVID. And that dialogue resulted in that information flowing to the communities we needed to reach. So it's through dialogue that we get the problem solved, not through people who are sitting at their keyboard at 11:30 at night wearing nylon underpants, drilling their fingers into their keyboards, telling us how appalled they are by this. The reason why I know that, Councillor Perry, is because I like to imagine that's what they're like. Sad, lonely individuals. It's worse, is it? They are sad, lonely individuals because they don't get out of their houses and actually have the conversations, do they? We have conversations here. Sometimes we disagree, but we have conversations, we have dialogue, and that's the way we improve the lot of the people that we represent. You referenced disabilities. We, of course, comply with the Disabilities Discrimination Act. We comply with the Equalities Act. But that said, there are always going to be occasions where we haven't quite done as much as we could have done, and we correct it when we do, and we correct it wholeheartedly and fulsomely when we inadvertently make mistakes. But the intention is there to always comply, and the intention is there to make sure that those people with disabilities are well represented and well catered for within Staffordshire County Council. Thank you for your words, Councillor Hussain. They remind us of the importance of stamping out this sort of thing everywhere, and particularly in the county of Staffordshire. The end to racism.
Thank you, Councillor White, for those incredibly wise words, and I agree, and I think as a chamber we agree that he doesn't belong anywhere in this chamber or in Staffordshire or in the United Kingdom. Moving on to item 8 on the leaders' statement, which is the procurement of gas supplies. Councillor David Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Looking at items 8 and also item 9, it's probably an unfair question at this stage, but I wonder whether with all the work that we have done in becoming more efficient in the consumption of our energy, whether we can actually quantify yet the reduced amount of gas and electricity that we're using because of our green policies. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Looking at subjects like this brings me back to my recent working life, where we'd had long-term gas contracts which were extremely stable and had been stable literally for decades. It wasn't something which was considered a great deal of thought when it came up to renewing a gas contract. But obviously, in recent times, you know, issues regarding supply, issues regarding the dwindling stocks at North Sea, and issues regarding the onshore storage which we have as a nation to buffer, which again is indicative of our complacent attitude to energy and gas in particular. It almost closed the company I work for, which operated the dye house, and dye houses run an awful lot of stuff at high temperature. It almost caused that company to consider closure of one of its sites. And I know similar conversations I've had with various of the sectors of the pottery industry in Stoke-on-Trent. So certainly the changes in gas price have been felt very pertinent. I think what it shows is the importance of not being complacent. I'm confident from the short time I've been here that this council and other councils aren't complacent. But it shows that the investment put into insulation, carbon reduction, green technologies, what you want to call them, is not flower and extra things which don't need to be spent, they only spent for such a win, are now fundamentally important. And the changes to gas really have been the wake-up call over the past couple of years on the importance of make sure that every single aspect of putting our house in order so that we minimise the amount of gas and therefore minimise the expenditure more than offsets any short, medium-term increases, and eventually allows us to transition 100% to green technologies. So, and I know that from the work which I've been involved in with the Climate Change Working Group and the Staffordshire Sustainability Board, that there's a lot of emphasis and enthusiasm to do that change. But what we need to do and what we need to ensure is continually look at what we're doing and double down again, so that in 5 years' time, the conversations about gas are residual, not mainstream. Thank you.
Councillor Mark DeVille.
Chairman, thank you. If I may just put some focus on the importance of this report, Chairman. Our annual spend on gas alone is about £7.5 million annually. of which, Chairman, 2.5 million is on our corporate estate, offices, etc., and about 5 million is spent with district partners, police, fire, and our academies. So we're talking a very, very large amount of money. Delighted to hear the comments about our preservation of usage of gas and utilities and care for the environment. Excellent question, Mr. Smith, about the reduction in gas and electricity use. Actually, reduction through the work that we've done on street lighting has resulted in 18.4 kilowatts saving, which in everyday terms actually relates to us using one of our household appliances, such as a TV, for 42 years. So, Mr. Yates, there's no complaint, and thanks for the work that you've done both at county and at district with regard to this. There's no complacency anywhere in this council about looking after our planet, looking after the future for our children and our grandchildren. We've only got one planet, we've only got one chance of protecting it, and believe me that there's no complacency on our part to continue doing that. So it's a really, really important report, Chairman, with the value that we spend on utilities. But I think even more importantly, Chairman, it's another example of us looking at the preservation of our environment as part of our day job, and we'll continue to do that.
Moving on to item 9 on the leader's statement, which is the contract for the supply of electricity for street lighting and intelligent transport systems. I have no speakers. Councillor DeVille, do you want to come back? Are you okay with that? Okay, so I'm going to swiftly move on to item 10, which is the local transport fund. Councillor Anne Edgeler.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Because of the accident on the M6, Stafford Road was in absolute chaos on Tuesday due to the closure of the M6. Loads of appointments missed, heavy goods vehicles going down roads that had weight restrictions on. Highways England need to find a solution to this problem. It's happening far too often, and the people of Stafford are suffering, and they've had enough. I'm no traffic engineer, but we owe it to the people of Stafford to get some answers from Highways England as to how they solve the problem. Every time the M6 junction 14, 13, 12 are closed, Stafford comes to a standstill. Having said that, let us give some thought to the people involved in the accident and wish them a speedy recovery. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Charlotte Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see that Staffordshire is going to be receiving an extra £286 million, but how is that going to be allocated? And will we get it? I appreciate that we're developing a local transport plan, but when we were looking at this at the district, there was real concern that there's only been allocated 1 month for consultation. And it seems to me that that breaks consultation guidelines. Why, with such an important document, are we just allowing 1 month for input from local councils and other bodies? Thank you.
Councillor Mark Winnington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HS2 rolls on and rolls on, and I'm sure it will do for another 5 or 10 years anyway. For 7 years, according to this, we've got 7 years to spend or allocation of this money from the stopping of HS2. I really want to just talk about the fact that we did, as a council, pursue the Handsacre link to make sure that Staffordshire got some gain from HS2. What it's meant as time's gone on and the cancelling of the mains HS2 phase 2 onwards has that we will have, according to law, a connection Handsacre onto the West Coast Main Line. This will go through Stafford. And my plea really is when we're looking at the planning on this local transport fund, that we look towards doing some sort of work with the Borough Council around improving the station. There's a station gateway which is already being put forward, which is getting government money. But I think, and it came up earlier from Councillor Hood, we need to be looking at public transport and enhancing it. And to my mind, Stafford, with all its connections, should be looked at as a multimodal link, which means that we can then feed that out to the greater Staffordshire and make sure that all our residents have good public transport and, as has just been mentioned, less traffic on the roads as well. Thank you.
Councillor David Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I commend all the extra money that we're going to be able to spend on roads in Staffordshire. I think that's fantastic. I would love to feel that some of it was going to be spent on alleviating rat running through my division. But when we look at expenditure, it's also interesting when we look at the amount of expenditure we've been able to persuade another council to make. And I'm delighted, Chairman, that at a recent full council meeting of Walsall Council, we had a member of the community within Stonnell who was invited to address the council on the problems of the Chester Road and the problems of the crossings. That was debated very extensively and is available to call down if anyone feels moved to watch the debate. But the advantage that we have is that the council agreed unanimously that they would ask the Cabinet at Walsall to address the problems of Chester Road and to look at how they can add restrictions onto the Chester Road. I'm absolutely delighted that Walsall have responded in this way, and I think it's a perfect example of how we as the local member can actually influence another council. But I would re-emphasise that the only reason we have a problem on the Chester Road is because we have not been able to address the problems of rat running, which is increasing more and more and more as we find new housing being built in Lichfield District particularly, where everybody takes the opportunity of rat running through Stonnell and through the lanes and then trying to cross a major road in the terms of the Chester Road. So I really implore this council to give some further thought on how we're going to address rat running, because it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Philip Atkins.
Thank you, Chairman. Really, I was just listening to the four previous speakers, and when Anne Egler stood up and talked about Stafford and the M6, when there was an accident on the M6 on Tuesday, you should have come and had a look at the A50. It was blocked because of people trying to take a rat run and miss out the M6 and go across the country. And Mark Winnington's quite right about the multimodal transport hub at Stafford, because a lot of the work that we were doing as a local authority through Midlands Connect and Midlands Engine was trying to put the additional infrastructure in place so that people could make use of our mainline railway station. So even though HS2, which this chamber has always said was a bad idea, we've always been doing the work about trying to improve our infrastructure and being able to connect and get across the country, east, west, north, south. So really what Charlotte was on about only a month's consultation, blimey, there's piles of paper stacked up with the evidence of what we need to do. There's stacks of it. And I do hope that, not like East Staffs with the new administration there on the Borough Council, the first thing they did was delay all the projects because they wanted to go and have a look at the paperwork and discover that, oh, that's how it is. So we need to get on with this because time doesn't stand still. And I'm pleased to say that the extra money into the development in Branston Locks, but there's another one called the Third River Crossing, which in East Staffordshire has been going on for as long as as long as I can remember, about putting another road in across it. And lo and behold, the developer over in Derbyshire is going, oh, I don't know, not yet. Can we have a delay? I just quite haven't got the money. Oh. So you do have to work with your neighbours, even over the boundary in Derbyshire or Walsall or Cheshire or wherever, because we live in the United Kingdom. It's called a country called England if we're national. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Richard Cox.
Thank you, Chairman. I do welcome the report going forward. It's remiss of me not to have mentioned today that there's a plan to upgrade the Wood End Lane to an A road, and the first phase was going to, phase 2A was going to finish the job, but obviously I'd like to hope that the monies involved here will complete that very much needed upgrade. It will help certainly two of my main villages within the division and the ward that I represent at district, and I would like to think that that project could actually get going as soon as possible. But you know, I understand the constraints of timing, etc. But I hope we can fulfil that project, a much needed upgrade. Thank you.
Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, and I welcome this additional funding, and I do note the first line of the statement, which adds good connected road network is important to people and businesses in Staffordshire. Obviously, I think we all agree with that, but there's more road users than just the ones who use cars and business delivery vehicles. There's the pedestrians, there's commuters to schools, and the cyclists, and none of those are mentioned in this short paragraph, and I'll take that as just as a short paragraph. But that is an important consideration which we need to do going forward. I mean, we've all got problems in all our wards, divisions, boroughs, districts, whatever, with school transport provision. We've all got problems with all our primary schools, middle schools, high schools, absolutely chock-a-block. Some of us have got problems that the bus companies actually divert their bus route at school times, which certainly does not help delivering children on a bus to school, but they divert their bus at school times because they can't get past the schools because of congestion of parked traffic. It's a shame, really, that some of these commuters, some of these people dropping school children aren't allowed to drop them off directly by car in the classroom, because that would free up space on the roads. But what that brings is this money should give us the opportunity, especially with the local transport plan being considered at this moment in time, to look at a new way of thinking about how we manage some of these pinch points. Some of these pinch points aren't just commuting from the north of the county to the south of the county. These pinch points are in all our towns, boroughs, parishes, villages, whatever, and we need to find a solution where car isn't necessarily king. Most people around here are of a generation where we never had a lift to school. Schools haven't gone further away. In fact, there's more schools, they've come closer. So why is this perception that they need to be travelling in a car? Is it because the roads are too dangerous? Is it because the footpaths aren't maintained? Is it because zebra crossings in busy areas aren't upgraded to pelican or toucan crossings, or whatever the latest bird call it is at this moment in time? But the reality of it is this money gives us that little bit of space to start planning our infrastructures in all our areas to actually reduce the amount of short-term car vehicle traffic which we've got. And that becomes an absolute must. And that has to be a cornerstone, whether it's through public transport, whether it's through safer walking routes, whether it's through enhanced cycle routes either within the road network or separate to the road network, which includes ongoing maintenance, because we've had cycle routes put in which have then been completely forgotten about. But it is very important that we take this opportunity of this additional funding to look at things a little bit differently, and in some respects, with regards to walking to school, let's go back to the future. Thank you. Councillor
Philip White.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So I won't steal Councillor Williams' thunder in terms of the Transport Fund generally, but I just wanted to speak to the visit from John Glenn, the Minister for the Cabinet Office, and also, importantly, the Paymaster General to Staffordshire to see the Branston interchange. A really good example of what this county does well, which is securing funding for really significant infrastructure to improve transport in one of our major towns, but also securing a major contribution from the private sector to deliver that really well. So the public and private sector working well together here in Staffordshire, and national government wanting to come and see how we do that. It's also pleasing to be able to report to Council that the Cabinet Office Minister is not the only minister who's taken an interest in Staffordshire so far this year. So in our pursuit of further investment, particularly into the A5500, we've also met with the Science Minister to talk about innovation along the corridor, particularly in hydrogen. We have met with the Levelling Up Minister for reasons that speak for themselves in terms of the importance of the projects we're delivering here. And we've had wonderful support from Mark Harper, the Secretary of State for Transport, who spoke at our recent parliamentary event and stayed for quite a considerable amount of time to work the room to talk to political, business and academic leaders from across the whole of the middle of the country who were there at that event that Staffordshire convened. So we are getting that national attention. And on national attention, it's really good to see the government having a renewed focus on local transport, whether that's highways maintenance or whether it's this fund, which Councillor Yates outlined all of the many uses for really well. But in a general election year, it would be jolly useful to hear from the opposition as to their plans in terms of spending in this area, because the planning for this takes quite some time and it needs to be done on a long-term basis, and that is rather difficult to do when only one of the two potential parties of government has committed to that funding. I might have missed a commitment, but it would be nice to know that whatever happens in the general election, that funding is secure so that local authorities such as this one can just get on with planning and delivering. Thank you.
Councillor Johnny McMahon.
This funding is clearly much appreciated, and we really are very happy with it, as we can see from both sides. I just want to speak to Mr. Yates's point because it speaks to a wider issue, and that's the link between the environment and public health. There was work done in the United States after the Great Recession, and it looked at 790 areas within the United States, and it showed that people were living longer after the Great Recession, over the age of 55, by 1 year. And they looked at all sorts of different parameters to determine where that extra year came from. And that extra year of healthy living after the age of 55 is quite significant in terms of people's lives and the public purse. And the answer was, it was pollution. And because there was a slight drop in the pollution, it made a big difference to people's health and people's lives. And the other issue about this, which I fully endorse, is the whole business of active transport. There was work done about 30 years ago comparing continental Europe with the United Kingdom. And it showed that car ownership, I mean, this is so long ago, it needs to be refreshed, but it was instructive at the time. Car ownership was about the same. But what was different was that for small distances in Europe, the car was parked in front of the house. And we didn't jump in the car to go and buy the newspaper down the road, then come back again. And I think that's a question of a change of culture. It's not just infrastructure, it's a change of culture. And getting kids to walk to school isn't just infrastructure, although that's part of it, it's culture. And I think it's incumbent upon us, in terms of both policy and in terms of comms, to link public health with the environment, and to do our level best through the comms to encourage a change of culture. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Davy Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wondered if you don't mind just to read a quick statement with regards to the point Councillor Edgeler brought up with regards to the gridlock experienced in Stafford on Tuesday, which was obviously a frustrating experience for I would, however, like to be clear that when the works on the 449 were approved, National Highways were formally notified that their strategic diversion route will not be available to them and that they need to utilise other routes. Although you cannot stop individuals taking it upon themselves to divert through Stafford and ignore signs, it is my belief that National Highways failed to act upon this on Tuesday, and therefore I've asked officers to investigate and challenge National Highways on their decisions and actions. As members know, there's a number of major works taking place in Stafford at the moment, which if done one after the other would spread the disruption over years, something we all wanted to avoid. Although the other works around the town didn't help on Tuesday, the real problem was the closure of the 449 southbound, which, as I said, we had clearly given National Highways early instructions that this route was not available to them. Our residents, however, have been clear that they want their roads repaired, and this council has invested an extra £50 million to spend on roads over the next 3 years. Unfortunately, and quite obviously, with this level of improvement and repairs comes a level of disruption. We therefore hope people can bear with us while we deliver their priorities. We'll also remind Councillor Edger that unfortunately the A449 is a trunk road, so therefore will always be a diversionary route when we're not working on it for the M6. I too, Chairman, I'm really happy with the fact that we've been allocated some money. So unfortunately, we don't know the allocations as of yet, but should know in the next month. We only know the first 2 years of the allocations, starting from April 2025. And when we know the allocations properly, DfT will also set out what we need to do in terms of spending plans for those 2 years. It will always come with conditions, and as I say, we're working with them on that. Clearly, members are talking about public transport, remembering that we don't run public transport. We subsidise people who need help for public transport, or we subsidise routes that literally need that, so they would close, and have done that across the board on routes that are no longer profitable. But we also have to make it so that it comes to a certain point, and when we're going over anywhere where it's more than £20 per person per journey, that is an unconditional no, because we can't subsidise that anymore. And the point was made quite some time ago when we were talking about public transport. If you don't lose it, you lose it, and that has been the case for many, many routes around the county. However, members will also be aware that we applied for money out of our BSIP, and we were told, make it big, make it bold, and we did, and we went in for £113 million. And we were told it wasn't ambitious enough and didn't get a penny. Despite that, we've still managed to work and maintain an active partnership, as we've done now with all of our operators, and these are private bus operators who operate the buses. And we're now looking at working with them to apply for money out of the next BSIP, where that will be worked hopefully at the end of this year, by the end of this year, where we'll be looking to do similar things. Chairman, I'm really happy that we've got some money coming in. It would be nice to know exactly how and when it's coming in the right ways. We know the first 2 years' allocations are quite small, and I will really hope as well that the opposition members, should things happen in the general election where it's another party involved and in charge, will lobby them at their hierarchy to make sure that we continue to get this money so that we can improve the roads in Staffordshire. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to address, first of all, Councillor Yates's and Councillor McMahon's both excellent points about journeys to school. And Councillor McMahon talked about the cultural issues that occur here. I'll talk about my circumstances because I don't want to make assumptions about anybody else. My wife and I are working parents. When our son was going to nursery, kindergarten, he had to be driven to school because he refused to take the bus aged 1. But you get, I know, completely unreasonable, but you do get into the habit of putting your child in the car in the morning and driving them to somewhere rather than saying, off you go. I had to walk to school from the age of 5. Sympathy? No. So when I say to my wife, Get him to walk to the station. She says, oh, but it's raining a bit. I don't care, it's raining a bit. Walk to the station. But this is the point. You get into a habit, and you've got to get out of that habit for the benefit of your children, to encourage them to walk to school, because it's a communal activity. It's an opportunity for the children to interact on the way to school, to catch up on friendships, what you've seen on telly the night before or whatever. And I think it's actually an important part of social cohesion as much as it is a part of public health. Councillor Tagg must, of course, be rejoicing here, because his green agenda is inculcating itself throughout the council, and everybody's imploring others now to get out of the car and walk and consider that. I also want to just talk to the local transport fund allocations. Councillor Williams has talked very eloquently about those allocations and the fact that they are backloaded rather than front-loaded, so we'll only find out in due course what we're going to get in years 3 to 7. But as members of the council were talking, I was totting up how much was being spent by each member. I think Councillor Smith managed to spend 17 million in his speech, Councillor Cox managed to spend 25 million in his speech, and Councillor Yates managed to spend 255 million in his speech. So you can see that you're an expensive date, Councillor Yates. You can see that if everybody got their wish with the local transport fund, we simply wouldn't have enough money. So we're going to have to prioritise those schemes that are the most vital across the county. There are, of course, rat runs that we need to address. There are pavements that we need to attend to. But what we have to do is prioritise those things. I've already had letters from members of Parliament saying, could you just explain how you're going to spend the £40 million of Staffordshire County Council's allocation in 25-26 in my constituency, to which you say, well, it's not a constituency allocation, it's a county-wide allocation. So it's a great opportunity. There's a lot to go at, but we will have to prioritise as that money comes through. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on to item 11 on the leader's statement, which is Wally's Quarry. Councillor Derry Cookfield.
Can I just say, Mr. Chairman, I think you're about fed up of reading me talk about Wally's Quarry. Right?
Councillor Cookfield, it's an agenda item. I'm sure we're all delighted, and I'm sure that your words of wisdom will be well received.
Well, very, very wise. Can I just say, first of all, to the leader in Newcastle Council and the leader of Staffordshire County Council, the residents within my area that I represent, right, they turning round and saying, right, listen to us. We need help. And it's a very sore thing, this is, because of what's going on at this moment in time. We've got people turning round and saying they're killing our grandchildren. We've got people turning round and saying that the moment a baby is born, the first gasp of air that they have is contaminated. Gas. And they want to know what we're all going to do about it, because the Environmental Agency, nobody can trust them. They're becoming an absolute joke. Right? They suspended the licence, knowing that all the gas was all in the atmosphere again. So they suspended the licence. How long was it for? 7, 8 days? Back to square one. Where do we go? It's up to everybody, and I'll say everybody in here, to write to the Environmental Minister insisting, right, that he shuts the site down, right, from this moment in time, right, and let's get back to where we should be, breathing proper air, right? I highlighted the point at the last meeting that I attended here. I highlighted that my wife frightened the life out of me, right, because I thought that was it. Where do we go? If you won't help him, who will? The government at this moment in time, right, should step in. The Environmental Minister should step in, right, and say enough is enough. Forget the money, because that's what it's all about, is money, right? People are more important. Babies that are born are more important. You say, well, can you say it'll affect them? Come back in 10 or 20 years' time and then tell me that. it's too late. How can asbestos affect you? Come back in 20 years' time. Too late. People have died with it. People have had cancer with it. You can go on until the cows come home. And I'm asking all of you, write your letters, email them, right, to the Environmental Ministry, right, and see if we can do something for the people within our area. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Uckfield, and keep representing the people of your area as you do. Councillor Simon Tack.
Thank you, Chairman. I completely agree with the comments of Councillor Uckfield. He's been involved with this even longer than I have seen this deteriorating situation, which seems to get worse year after year, and I think we're back to where we started on this. So residents living around the landfill and further afield were relieved when the Environment Agency finally used its power to suspend the site. I don't think anybody thought that it would be just for those 7 days. I think that's disgraceful. I think, you know, if it was only going to take 7 days to do the work, why didn't they ask them to do that years ago? And then they say they are lifting the suspension, and then they say they're going to analyse over the next few weeks whether that has been successful. I would have thought it should have been the other way around. See if it's been successful before you allow this operator to resume. They haven't done that. And now, quite rightly, the residents and their councillors, me included, my division sits where the quarry sits, are not happy, and they want to see, obviously, further action taken. I think as far as the County Council is concerned, the leader of the County Council joined me in writing to not only the Environment Minister, the previous one, or the one before that, or the one before that, we've had so many, but to the Prime Minister, and asked him. He didn't respond to me. It came from the latest Waste Minister to say that they weren't going to have a public inquiry. You know, so I think that's what we need to see, a public inquiry into the EA. But what we need to see on this site, and Councillor Uckfield is quite right, is further action. And my view is the work that has taken place will not be successful. No other work has been successful on this site before. There was a history to say that this site should not have been a landfill and given permission back in 1998 and so on. And it will continue to be a problem until I believe it is closed and it's capped off and it is restored. There is a plan for that from 2026 onwards. I believe the EA should bring that forward. That's my position. That's the position of Newcastle Borough Council. So we're with the residents on that and we'll keep fighting on that. But I think the personal effect for people is really awful to see, and it's also affecting people's mental health as well in the area. And this has gone on too long and it needs to be resolved. And I think the EA, you know, with their action, began to go in the right direction, and they need to continue to do that to end this scourge upon large parts of Newcastle Borough. Thank you.
Councillor Alan White. Sorry, can you give me a second? People are trying to speak after after the cabinet member has spoken and after I've called the leader. So you won't be allowed to speak. There was plenty of time while Councillor Uckfield was speaking to press your buttons. Thank you, Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clearly, Councillor Uckfield, and obviously speaks from the heart. Thank you for your contribution to the council, and thank you for your tenacity, keeping on at this for 20-odd years. You and I had a long telephone conversation recently where you were able to give me the history of your involvement in the site, your knowledge of the people who've been involved with the site, the contributions that should have been made, the things that failed to happen, meetings that have taken place in your kitchen with representatives of the Environment Agency and others to try and push forward with this. So there has nobody done more work on this than you have, Councillor Uckfield, and I think local residents should be hugely grateful for all the work. But all the work you're doing isn't, unfortunately, getting the result that you want, and that's the reason why you stand up here this morning. It is a disgrace that the Environment Agency hasn't responded appropriately to our pleas for help on this. Councillor Tagonai, as he referenced, had written to the Prime Minister and various Secretaries of State, because they come and go, they really do, and Environment Ministers, to implore them to do something about this site. We get told, as senior leaders, that this is a technically difficult site and we're going to put environmental monitoring onto the site. And then guess what happens? The monitoring equipment is faulty and inappropriately calibrated. So we're not even sure what the situation is with the gas emissions from the site, which is a further disgrace. Councillor Pert and I talked about what we could do to put pressure on the Environment Agency. So Councillor Pert has led joint scrutiny with Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council and Staffordshire County Council, asking the Environment Agency to represent themselves at a public meeting of scrutiny. They empty-chaired us on something that involves public health and the future generations of the people living around Newcastle, in Newcastle-under-Lyme, and particularly around Silverdale and Wally's Quarry. Totally and utterly unacceptable. We can say that we will redouble our efforts, and we will redouble our efforts, Councillor Huckfield. Rest assured of that. But we need to have a receptive audience. We need to have an Environment Agency that's willing to take action. We need to have an Environment Minister who's willing to put their hand in their pocket and say, you know what, there's a problem with this and we need to solve it. It won't do. It will not do. We demand action on behalf of from the government and the Environment Agency in particular. I expect to see them at Councillor Pert's next scrutiny committee when he calls it on this subject, which I think is pretty imminent, isn't it? Yep. And I look forward to that taking place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. I think that was emotionally put as from the previous member as well. That's absolutely fantastic. As a group, we're all behind the local members and making sure this is well supported. Moving on to item 12 on the Leader statement, which is the Foster Care Awards. Councillor Anne Edgler.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Recognising the good work foster carers do is important and needed. I would ask the people in Staffordshire, if you're thinking of fostering, please don't think about it, do it. Giving a child that has probably gone through a lot of trauma in their young lives, to give them love, care and understanding, listening to their concerns, is one of the most rewarding jobs on earth. I know because I speak from experience. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mark Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. Spoke earlier of the importance of our foster carers and being able to place children in our care with foster carers. And we have, over the last few years, started, I think, to recognise the importance that foster carers play even more by having annual award events for them. And this takes this, I think, to a further step, that we have these further foster carer awards and these nominations. So my point of standing and speaking is, if any of you around the chamber know of any foster carers who are deserving of this recognition, or you've got people you know within your communities who know foster carers, could you please encourage them to nominate one of them in any of those categories. I think we've had 53 nominations so far, but when I sit down with others to go through them, I would like to think that we have a really difficult job in choosing 5. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on to item 13 on the Leader statement, which is the holiday activities and food programme. Councillor Jill Hood.
Thank you, Chairman. I have spoken about this on a number of occasions, and I make no apology for talking about it again. This is a fantastic scheme. No one can deny that. But sadly, because of the very poor response and the amount of people who don't turn up to fulfil these places, we have a lot of people who are just on the non-eligibility criteria, working families who, perhaps even just a couple of pounds, they're not eligible to go on to this. I have asked before, is there any way that we could have a cancellation register? That may sound ludicrous, but I'm sure there must be a way that we can put out on our website to those families who desperately would like the chance, the opportunity to give their children a day of fun, which they can't possibly afford because they're juggling money, they're juggling their finances. Do they pay for food? Do they pay for bills? Do they pay for repairs for the washing machine? It's very, very sad that we can't offer this opportunity to those families. And yet again, here I am asking, can we try and create some way in which we can invite those who aren't eligible to come along and take advantage of this scheme? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Moxon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll endeavour to answer Councillor Hood's comments first before talking about exactly what I was going to say. And she is right, she has identified this on a number of occasions, and there's two specific things there, isn't there? Those families who are just outside the level to be able to get their children to one of these schemes, and then secondly, those families that book a place and then the children don't attend. There's unfortunately very little I can do about the former because the criteria is very strict, that it is only children who are entitled to free school meals that can attend. And unfortunately, there is no way round that. On the other point, though, and I visit these providers on a regular basis during the schemes, you know, and this morning been liaising about visiting some others during the Easter period. And I speak to many providers, and this is forefront in the way they try and run the schemes on an operational basis. They have lists of those people who should attend, and then they forever are ringing those people if they don't turn up and trying to get them to actually physically attend or ascertain why they're not there. And that is an ongoing issue that they are working hard at. And each time that we look at the providers, we also look at their attempts to be able to enhance the scheme and make it as good as possible. So those two areas are very much in our forefront with the officers and when we're looking at this. Almost 200,000 individual places have been provided across the county by a whole host of providers since this scheme first started in the summer of 2021. And this Easter, 80 different clubs will be available for that 2-week period around the county, providing 15,000 places of activities linked to a nutritious meal, which is excellent. And it's not just the individual sports club type things that a lot of them run. There's computing, there's wellness, you know, and there's outdoor activities around campfire, cooking, linked to nutrition and well-being there. So every member here will have been sent a link with the advertising and media stuff. So I would ask all members to try and advertise it across all the networks they're involved with, their local parish councillors and other community organisations, because it is essential that as far as possible we can fill each one of those 15,000 places over the Easter period. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item 14 and the final item on the leader statement, which is school places. Councillor Richard Cox.
Thank you, Chairman. There's two things I'd like to say on this. And first of all, I do thank our Education Department in the difficult work that they do in trying to place people, young people, into the schools of what would be the parents' choice. And I welcome the hard work that's involved. And I have been communicating with them because, for me, I think the 9 out of 10, I've got the 1 in 10 on a number of occasions. And obviously, there's a situation which should never have occurred, which I know the County Council were objecting to the Hart School reducing the school intake by removing one of their sites. And that has had an absolute detrimental effect on my house's estate of Hawkshire, which was adjacent to Rugeley. Having said that, it seems to be that those caring parents who really have, that the process fails them, but we have to understand and deliver the answers with empathy and sympathy and trying to deal with the best. So there is an appeal system. I'm urging them to go through that process, but it just seems bad decisions by other parties, in my view, has led this to a problem. And we know that we've got the all-through school going through. I can advise Council today that I've been pressing the Planning Authority, and only this morning have had the issues that were with the planning are effectively sorted. We're waiting confirmation from Sport England because they originally objected, and hopefully by the end of April a decision will have confirmed that we will be pressing ahead. Now that will resolve things, I'm absolutely sure, but we can't afford those delays because before long, 2025 intake, we may have the same problem, and that will be again. So I do employ everybody to just make this happen to ensure that we're not having this discussion of 1 in 10 in being disappointed. But I do thank the County Council's Education Department. Obviously having to deal with a lot of academies, which aren't local authorities' responsibility. Thank you.
Councillor Philip Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I welcome this report, and I just want to dismiss the false claims that we seem to get in Uttoxeter that due to the increase in housing, we don't have enough spaces for our children to attend school. I know that the County Council monitor the situation through the year. We know how many people are coming to live in Uttoxeter. We know the anticipated spaces for our children in the future. And you just see these false claims on Facebook all the time. I just want to dismiss those claims. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Moy Sutherland.
Thank you, Chair. Really just responding to Hart School, as a comment was made, and it's very easy to look for blame. And in this case, I want to defend Hart School because there isn't blame. It's a school that's creaking at the sides, and they've not gone out of their way to be difficult. There was an expectation of an all-through school coming on. It will happen. We're just waiting for that final time. So on behalf of Hart School, and I represent that ward, I think it would be totally and utterly unfair to think that they are responsible for the comments that were made earlier. And just picking up on the earlier comments, I think it is fantastic that our families do get, in the main, first choices. And we hope that when the situation in and around Rugeley is resolved, that will return to those high numbers. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jonathan Price.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. So, just on the comments around the particular issue that we face, or have been facing in the Rugeley School, I am pleased to say that with the support of both the members, our leader as well, Councillor Alan White, and with the support of Lichfield District Council, we have managed to move forward, and it looks like things are progressing well and are on schedule. So that is good news. With relation to the Hart School, they have taken on a significant amount of pupils and have expanded with the support of the County Council, and I really thank them for that. The school organisation team and admissions team had identified the potential gap and shortfall of places for children in Rugeley going forward, and had actually asked the Hart if they would delay the closure of the second site. Unfortunately, they decided to go against our wishes and was supported by the regional director, and unfortunately that school closed, and that's why we do find ourselves in the position that we're in. But we do have a good relationship with the Hart, and they've been very supportive to take as many pupils as they possibly can until we do get the Rugeley all-through school open. And I wanted to talk just very briefly as well around school admissions and making sure that we have enough school places, and the work that the team does around the Capital Schools programme makes sure that we do have those places available. And you talk about 1 in 10 not having places, but actually it's 99% for the top 3 choices, and that's why we do ask for 3 choices. Next Wednesday, I take a paper to Cabinet to discuss our Capital Schools programme and the work we're doing to make sure that we have sufficient places available for our children across the county. A total of 56 million will be spent on building new schools and maintaining and improving existing ones over the next 12 months. More than 14 million will be allocated to improve existing provision for pupils with SEND, and more than 32 million will be spent on building brand new schools over the next 3 years to accommodate those new housing estates. These schools include new primary schools in Stafford, Tamworth, East Staffordshire and Lichfield, and an estimated 26.5 million new secondary school to be built in Stafford. It's also important to plan for the future and ensure we are building schools that mitigate the rise in demand for school places, and our forward planning has ensured that the overwhelming majority of parents and consistently allocated one of their top choice secondary or primary schools. And this year saw more than 90% of parents allocated their first choice secondary school, with 99% allocated one of their top 3. The county has also consistently achieved similar figures for our primary school admissions. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank the team on the Capital Schools programme, but also to thank Sam Nichols and the team at the school admissions to make sure that our parents get the schools and the choice that they want. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was the last item on the leader statement, so I move that the report be received. Is that agreed? Agreed. Moving on to item 6 on the main agenda, which is the pay policy statement. Councillor Alan White, will you move consideration of the report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the pay policy statement 2024 to 2025.
Second it. Reserve my right to speak later in the debate if there is one.
I have no speakers. Councillor, I was going to say, do you wish to respond? There's absolutely nothing to respond to. Do you want to speak on it, Councillor White, now? OK. It has been moved and seconded that the recommendations contained in the report be approved. Is that agreed? Moving on to item 7 on our agenda today, which is a report of the Chairman of the Staffordshire Police, Fire and Crime Panel. As Councillor Peters is not here today, Richard Cox, Councillor Richard Cox, will you please move consideration of the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I move consideration of the reports of the Staffordshire Police, Fire and Crime Panel, the 2 meetings held, one to discuss the precept for the police and the second one for the precept for the fire service. So I move those for consideration. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, yes, I would publicly like to thank Chief Fire Officer Rob Barber and his team for the work they do to help the health service. Only last week it was said by a fire officer at our Health and Wellbeing Board meeting, which Councillor Sutton chairs, they helped 300 discharges from hospital.
The further speakers on this item, I move that the report be received. Is that agreed? Moving on to item 8, the appointment of Chairman and Vice Chairman's committees. Councillor Alan White, can you please move your nominations for the appointment of Chairman and Vice Chairman committees and panels?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just the one nomination. It's the new Chair of Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I nominate County Councillor Samantha Thompson. Samantha came on to the County Council just under 3 years ago, has done sterling work, and I think it reflects her abilities, a sharp and inquiring mind, and I look forward to working with her because I recognise the fact that the leader of Council gets scrutinised by the Chair of Corporate Scrutiny. So stand by.
Councillor Philip White, will you second?
Pleasure to second this.
Once again, Alan White has moved the nominations. Is that agreed? and I'm sure we offer our warmest congratulations to Councillor Thompson. Item 9, which is questions under Standing Order 8. The Chairman, members, the 5 questions and answers have been circulated to members and published on our website. In accordance with the usual procedure, the questions and answers will be taken as read. I will allow each questioner 5 minutes in which to ask a supplementary question and to receive an answer. No debate is allowed. Councillor Yates to Councillor David Williams. Councillor Yates, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I have. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your answer to your question. I'm certainly no way criticising the efforts over the winter. It's been the amount of rain which we've had, which you've alerted to, and the surface water flooding has been absolutely unprecedented. And I had the pleasure of having the Chief Executive to visit the Staffordshire Moorlands, and we did note on some of the issues which had directly been caused by surface water flooding, which had really deteriorated the road surface. To that end, I get a number of complaints basically through Facebook to complain about damage being caused. And it's those kind of potholes which I'd like to sort of know on whether there is a scope within the AMI contract to actually directly employ subcontractors from the council, or whether, I'm just not clear with the final paragraph, whether we can directly employ and have a reserve list of potentially emergency contractors outside of the AMI contract, or do we have to go, are those subcontracted via AMI, and AMI look after that contract list? Because I do think the scope, especially in winters to come, based on the evidence of this winter, there are extra resources which are available at short notice would mitigate an awful lot of potential vehicle damage and potential vehicle claims on the county accordingly. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your supplementary question. Yes, we can bring in local people, but obviously one of the things is we have to do it, and it's better to do it obviously through our Infrastructure Plus contract. It will also mean that the permitting scheme is maintained, and so that we know when and where we're doing the works. And we already have that ability now to already bring in local teams already. So it would be better to do it through our Infrastructure Plus, through AMI, who have obviously got contacts with that. And we also want to then be able to maintain the quality of the work, which has been a real focus for Cabinet, has been ensuring that whatever work is carried out to the right quality. So yes, we can, but I would suggest you go through the I Plus contract to do that.
Councillor Hussain to Councillor Wilson. I'm aware that Councillor Wilson isn't here today. Councillor Sutton has kindly offered to take the supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to also thank the Cabinet member for the answer she provided. So on my supplementary, I would like to highlight that in police statistics, Mr. Chairman, on the possession of weapons or any knife crime is gone up by 41% in last 12 months, 41%, the possession of weapons and a knife, especially in Staffordshire. So my supplementary question to the Cabinet member, how can the County Council ensure that a consistent program or awareness and education around this area and can be done with the existing interventions? Thank you.
Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, thank you for the supplementary. I think the answer to the question provided by Councillor Wilson details in some great detail what the Staffordshire Violence Reduction Strategy and Alliance do. Having examined the website and had a little look through that in some detail over the past couple of days in preparation for this, there is an awful lot of information there. Lots about what we're doing as partners across the whole of Staffordshire, led by the Police, Crime and Fire Commissioner, as well as all the stuff that's done with the districts directly with ourselves. And one thing I would like to point out to the member opposite is that crime with a bladed article accounts for less than 1% of all recorded crime within the county. But that isn't isn't to lessen the impact that does have when it actually takes place, you know, but I think we do need to put this into some perspective. So what I would suggest in answer to the member, have a good detailed look at that website, what is all being done, and if there are any further points, I'm sure the member responsible would answer any questions directly if you were to contact them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Question 3, which is Councillor Pardacey to Councillor David Williams. Councillor Pardacey, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Chair. My question is, what is so hard about understanding that underfunding means more disrepair on our roads, which is going to cost even more the longer it is left? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you for your supplementary question. I think I'll refer you to the answer I gave a little while ago, and the fact that this council has invested in our roads and is continuing to invest in our roads. We've changed the way that we're working with the transformation. We're looking at the restructuring so it's more efficient. We're looking at the communications and continuing to improve our communications with our residents. And last year alone, we completed over 16,000 pothole defect rectifications. We carried out over 100 miles of surface dressing and carried out more than 10 capital maintenance schemes. This is the only cabinet that I am aware of that has actually stopped the decline in our roads as a whole of Staffordshire. We've actually improved it, and we're actually reducing the work stack as well. So, unfortunately, I think you're mistaken in your assertions that we are sitting back and not doing it. We are out there, we are working hard for it, and unfortunately, this is one of those years where for 130 years we have not had this much water. Stafford, as we know, is built on quite much of a floodplain, and which is why we see so much more damage than other places, because the water levels are so high. But that is happening across all of our roads. As well as the freezing temperatures, the water levels are really high. And I know the farmers in here will actually concur with me that the actual water level, where it is now, has not been this high for such a long time within their fields. Well, that water doesn't stop at the end of the field when it goes underneath the road. So actually we are doing what we can, as much as we can. And over this winter, I have to applaud our teams. We haven't sat back. We've continued to repair. We have had a large amount of Category 1 and Cat 2s, in which case I've had to authorise temporary repairs, which is not what we want to do. We always want to go out and do permanent repairs, but in some cases it's not actually being possible due to the weather, due to the conditions of the road. So your assertions that we are not pushing forward and we're just leaving it, we aren't doing that. And that was something that I made plain when I took hold of office. So I know that from the investment that we've already done and the investment that we're already going to put in over the next few years, and working with whatever funds we can get from government, we will try to make sure that Staffordshire has the best roads possible. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Afsar to Councillor Wilson. If you have a supplementary question, Councillor Sutton. You. I haven't finished yet, Councillor Afsar. If you have a supplementary question, then Councillor Sutton will take that supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No supplementary, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Afsar. The last question 5, is Councillor Charlotte Atkins to Councillor Wilcox, and I guess there will be a supplementary question, Councillor Atkins.
I want to disappoint you, Chair.
Yes, thank you.
And first of all, it's very good to hear that assessments are on track, because they can be incredibly stressful for families. But once the assessments have been done, do we have sufficient staff in place to deliver the social care which is so vital to our communities? What is the current vacancy level within the workforce on social care?
Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Councillor Atkins. You will go down in history as being my first question as the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. So I appreciate that opportunity and thank you. You are right. The care assessments that we complete are really important, and it's really important that we make sure that those that are not getting done in a timely fashion are addressed as well. So it's important that we continue to work on that other 20% that are quite not there, but we will do, and I know we have a dedicated team that want to do that. In relation to the vacancy level rates, I will have to come back to you. I don't have that to hand here, but I will make sure that I get that back to you as soon as I possibly can. But thank you for your supplementary question. Thank you, Chair.
Well, moving on from that historical moment. Item 10, petitions. Does any member have any petition they wish to present? I haven't been notified of any. Nope, we'll move on. Item 11, which is exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which involve the likely disclosure exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12I, as amended by the Local Government Act 1972, indicated below. Is that agreed? We should just wait a few moments for a couple of members of the public to leave and the cameras to be turned off. I'll get an indication shortly that the cameras are turned off.